The operation that was requested is pending completion. A reparse should be performed by the object manager since the name of the file resulted in a symbolic link. Returned by enumeration APIs to indicate more information is available to successive calls. Indicates not all privileges or groups referenced are assigned to the caller. This allows, for example, all privileges to be disabled without having to know exactly which privileges are assigned. Some of the information to be translated has not been translated. An open, create operation completed while an OPLOCK break is underway. A new volume has been mounted by a file system. This success level status indicates that the transaction state already exists for the registry subtree, but that a transaction commit was previously aborted. The commit has now been completed. This indicates that a notify change request has been completed due to closing the handle which made the notify change request. This indicates that a notify change request is being completed and that the information is not being returned in the caller's buffer. The caller now needs to enumerate the files to find the changes. No quotas, no system quota limits are specifically set for this account. Page fault was a transition fault. Page fault was a demand 0 fault. Page fault was a demand 0 fault. Page fault was a demand 0 fault. Page fault was satisfied by reading from a secondary storage device. Cached page was locked during operation. Crash dump exists in paging file. Specified buffer contains all zeros. A reparse should be performed by the object manager since the name of the file resulted in a symbolic link. The translator has translated these resources into the global space and no further translations should be performed. A process being terminated has no threads to terminate. The specified process is not part of a job. The specified process is part of a job. Volume shadow copy service, the system is now ready for hibernation. The current process is a cloned process. The file was locked and at least one user of the file can write. The file image hash is valid. The specified ring buffer was empty before the packet was successfully inserted. The specified ring buffer was full before the packet was successfully removed. The specified ring buffer has, with the removal of the current packet, now become empty. The handle with which this OPLOCK was associated has been closed. The OPLOCK is now broken. An operation is blocked waiting for an OPLOCK. Debugger handled exception. Debugger continued. The I/O was completed by a filter. An attribute was successfully built. Object exists. An attempt was made to create an object and the object name already existed. Thread suspended. A thread termination occurred while the thread was suspended. The thread was resumed, and termination proceeded. Working set range error. An attempt was made to set the working set minimum or maximum to values which are outside of the allowable range. Image relocated. An image file could not be mapped at the address specified in the image file. Local fix-ups must be performed on this image. This informational level status indicates that a specified registry subtree transaction state did not yet exist and had to be created. Segment load, a virtual DOS machine, VDM, is loading, unloading, or moving an MS-DOS or Win16 program segment image. An exception is raised so a debugger can load, unload or track symbols and breakpoints within these 16-bit segments. Local session key, a user session key was requested for a local RPC connection. The session key returned is a constant value and not unique to this connection. Invalid current directory, the process cannot switch to the startup current directory HS. Select OK to set current directory to HS, or select Cancel to exit. Serial IOCTL complete, a serial I/O operation was completed by another write to a serial port. The IOCTL_serial_XOFF_counter reached 0. Registry recovery, one of the files containing the system's registry data had to be recovered by use of a log or alternate copy. The recovery was successful. Technologies. Redundant write to satisfy a write request, the NT fault-tolerant file system successfully wrote a redundant copy of the information. This was done because the file system encountered a failure on a member of the fault-tolerant volume, but was not able to reassign the failing area of the device. Serial IOCTL timeout, a serial I/O operation completed because the timeout period expired. The IOCTL_serial_XOFF_counter had not reached 0. Password too complex. The Windows password is too complex to be converted to a LAN manager password. The LAN manager password returned is a null string. Partial data received. The network transport returned partial data to its client. The remaining data will be sent later. Expedited data received. The network transport returned data to its client that was marked as expedited by the remote system. TDI event done. The TDI indication has completed successfully. TDI event pending. The TDI indication has entered the pending state. Checking file system on WZ. Fatal application exit, HS. The specified registry key is referenced by a predefined handle. Page unlocked. The page protection of a locked page was changed to no access, and the page was unlocked from memory and from the process. HS. Page locked. One of the pages to lock was already locked. Status_already_WIN32. Exception status code used by Win32x86 emulation subsystem. 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 A yield execution was performed and no thread was available to run. The resumable flag to a timer API was ignored. The arbiter has deferred arbitration of these resources to its parent. The device, HS, has detected a CardBus card in its slot, but the firmware on this system is not configured to allow the CardBus controller to be run in CardBus mode. The operating system will currently accept only 16-bit R2 PC cards on this controller. Exception status code used by Win32x86 emulation subsystem. The CPUs in this multiprocessor system are not all the same revision level. To use all processors, the operating system restricts itself to the features of the least capable processor in the system. Should problems occur with this system, contact the CPU manufacturer to see if this mix of processors is supported. The system was put into hibernation. The system was resumed from hibernation. The ALPC message being cancelled has already been retrieved from the queue on the other side. A valid hibernation file has been invalidated and should be abandoned. Business rule scripts are disabled for the calling application. The specified copy of the requested data was successfully read. Image relocated. An image file was mapped at a different address from the one specified in the image file, but fix-ups will still be automatically performed on the image. Debugger will reply later. Debugger cannot provide handle. Debugger terminated thread. Debugger terminated process. Debugger got Control-C. Debugger printed exception on Control-C. Debugger received RIP exception. Debugger received control break. Debugger command communication exception. Exception, guard page exception. A page of memory that marks the end of a data structure, such as a stack or an array, has been accessed. Exception, alignment fault. A data type misalignment was detected in a load or store instruction. Exception, breakpoint. A breakpoint has been reached. Exception, single step. A single step or trace operation has just been completed. Buffer overflow. The data was too large to fit into the specified buffer. No more files were found which match the file specification. Kernel debugger awakened. The system debugger was awakened by an interrupt. Technologies. Handles closed. Handles to objects have been automatically closed as a result of the requested operation. Non-inheritable ACL, an access control list. ACL contains no components that can be inherited. GUID substitution. During the translation of a global identifier GUID to a Windows Security ID (SID), no administratively defined GUID prefix was found. A substitute prefix was used, which will not compromise system security. However, this may provide a more restrictive access than intended. Partial copy, due to protection conflicts, not all the requested bytes could be copied. Out of paper, the printer is out of paper. Device power is off, the printer power has been turned off. Device offline, the printer has been taken offline. Device busy, the device is currently busy. No more EAs, no more extended attributes, EAs, were found for the file. Illegal AIA, the specified extended attribute, AIA, name contains at least one illegal character. Inconsistent AIA list, the extended attribute, AIA, list is inconsistent. Invalid AIA flag, an invalid extended attribute, AIA, flag was set. Verifying disk, the media has changed and a verify operation is in progress, so no reads or writes may be performed to the device, except those used in the verify operation. Too much information, the specified access control list, ACL, contained more information than was expected. This warning level status indicates that the transaction state already exists for the registry subtree, but that a transaction commit was previously aborted. The commit has not been completed, but has not been rolled back either, so it may still be committed if desired. No more entries are available from an enumeration operation. File mark found, a file mark was detected. Media changed, the media may have changed. I/O bus reset, an I/O bus reset was detected. End of media, the end of the media was encountered. Beginning of tape or partition has been detected. Media changed, the media may have changed. A tape access reached a set mark. During a tape access, the end of the data written is reached. The server is in use and cannot be unloaded. The specified connection has already been disconnected. A long jump has been executed. The plug-and-play query operation was not successful. A frame consolidation has been executed. Registry Hive recovered. Registry Hive file, HS, was corrupted and it has been recovered. Some data might have been lost. The application is attempting to run executable code from the module HS. This may be insecure. An alternative, HS, is available. Should the application use the secure module HS? The create operation stopped after reaching a symbolic link. No ACE condition, the specified access control entry, ACE, does not contain a condition. Debugger did not handle the exception. The cluster node is already up. Buffer too small, the buffer is too small to contain the entry. No information has been written to the buffer. Volume metadata read or write is incomplete. BitLocker encryption keys were ignored because the volume was in a transient state. Operation failed, the requested operation was unsuccessful. Not implemented, the requested operation is not implemented. Invalid parameter, the specified information class is not a valid information class for the specified object. The specified information record length does not match the length required for the specified information class. The instruction at 0x. The instruction at 0xP referenced memory at 0xP. The required data was not placed into memory because of an I/O error status of 0xx. The page file quota for the process has been exhausted. An invalid handle was specified. An invalid initial stack was specified in a call to NT create thread. An invalid initial start address was specified in a call to NT create thread. An invalid client ID was specified. An attempt was made to cancel or set a timer that has an associated APC and the subject thread is not the thread that originally set the timer with an associated APC routine. An invalid parameter was passed to a service or function. A device which does not exist was specified. File not found, the file HS does not exist. The specified request is not a valid operation for the target device. The end of file marker has been reached. There is no valid data in the file beyond this marker. Technologies. Wrong volume, the wrong volume is in the drive. Please insert volume HS into drive HS. No disk, there is no disk in the drive. Please insert a disk into drive HS. Unknown disk format, the disk in drive HS is not formatted properly. Please check the disk, and reformat if necessary. Sector not found, the specified sector does not exist. Still busy, the specified I/O request packet, IRP, cannot be disposed of because the I/O operation is not complete. Not enough quota, not enough virtual memory or paging file quota is available to complete the specified operation. Conflicting address range, the specified address range conflicts with the address space. Address range to unmap is not a mapped view. Virtual memory cannot be freed. Specified section cannot be deleted. An invalid system service was specified in a system service call. Exception, illegal instruction. An attempt was made to execute an illegal instruction. Invalid lock sequence, an attempt was made to execute an invalid lock sequence. Invalid mapping, an attempt was made to create a view for a section which is bigger than the section. Bad file, the attributes of the specified mapping file for a section of memory cannot be read. Already committed, the specified address range is already committed. Access denied, a process has requested access to an object, but has not been granted those access rights. Buffer too small, the buffer is too small to contain the entry. No information has been written to the buffer. Wrong type, there is a mismatch between the type of object required by the requested operation and the type of object that is specified in the request. Exception, cannot continue. Windows cannot continue from this exception. An invalid exception disposition was returned by an exception handler. Unwind exception code. An invalid or unaligned stack was encountered during an unwind operation. An invalid unwind target was encountered during an unwind operation. An attempt was made to unlock a page of memory which was not locked. Device parity error on I/O operation. An attempt was made to decommit uncommitted virtual memory. An attempt was made to change the attributes on memory that has not been committed. Invalid object attributes specified to NT-create port or invalid port attributes specified to NT-connect port. Length of message passed to ENT-request port or ENT-request WriteReply port was longer than the maximum message allowed by the port. An invalid combination of parameters was specified. An attempt was made to lower a quota limit below the current usage. Corrupt disk, the file system structure on the disk is corrupt and unusable. Please run the check disk utility on the volume HS. Object name invalid. Object name not found. Object name already exists. Attempt to send a message to a disconnected communication port. An attempt was made to attach to a device that was already attached to another device. Object path component was not a directory object. Path not found, the path HS does not exist. Object path component was not a directory object. Data overrun, a data overrun error occurred. Data late, a data late error occurred. Data error, an error in reading or writing data occurred. Bad CRC, a cyclic redundancy check, CRC, checksum error occurred. Section too large, the specified section is too big to map the file. The NT-connect port request is refused. The type of port handle is invalid for the operation requested. A file cannot be opened because the share access flags are incompatible. Insufficient quota exists to complete the operation. The specified page protection was not valid. An attempt to release a mutant object was made by a thread that was not the owner of the mutant object. An attempt was made to release a semaphore such that its maximum count would have been exceeded. An attempt to set a process's debug port or exception port was made, but a port already exists in the process, or an attempt to set a file's completion port made, but a port was already set in the file, or an attempt to set an ALPC port's associated completion port was made, but it is already set. Technologies. An attempt was made to query image information on a section which does not map an image. An attempt was made to suspend a thread whose suspend count was at its maximum. An attempt was made to access a thread that has begun termination. An attempt was made to set the working set limit to an invalid value, minimum greater than maximum, etc. A section was created to map a file which is not compatible to an already existing section which maps the same file. A view to a section specifies a protection which is incompatible with the initial view's protection. An operation involving EAs failed because the file system does not support EAs. An A operation failed because A set is too large. An A operation failed because the name or A index is invalid. The file for which EAs were requested has no EAs. The A is corrupt and non-readable. A requested read/write cannot be granted due to a conflicting file lock. A requested file lock cannot be granted due to other existing locks. A non-close operation has been requested of a file object with a delete pending. An attempt was made to set the control attribute on a file. This attribute is not supported in the target file system. Indicates a revision number encountered or specified is not one known by the service. It may be a more recent revision than the service is aware of. Indicates two revision levels are incompatible. Indicates a particular security ID may not be assigned as the owner of an object. Indicates a particular security ID may not be assigned as the primary group of an object. An attempt has been made to operate on an impersonation token by a thread that is not currently impersonating a client. A mandatory group may not be disabled. There are currently no logon servers available to service the logon request. A specified logon session does not exist. It may already have been terminated. A specified privilege does not exist. A required privilege is not held by the client. The name provided is not a properly formed account name. The specified account already exists. The specified account does not exist. The specified group already exists. The specified group does not exist. The specified user account is already in the specified group account. Also used to indicate a group cannot be deleted because it contains a member. The specified user account is not a member of the specified group account. Indicates the requested operation would disable, delete or could prevent logon for an administration account. This is not allowed to prevent creating a situation in which the system cannot be administrated. When trying to update a password, this return status indicates that the value provided as the current password is not correct. When trying to update a password, this return status indicates that the value provided for the new password contains values that are not allowed in passwords. When trying to update a password, this status indicates that some password update rule has been violated. For example, the password may not meet length criteria. The attempted logon is invalid. This is either due to a bad username or authentication information. Indicates a referenced username and authentication information are valid, but some user account restriction has prevented successful authentication, such as time of day restrictions. The user account has time restrictions and may not be logged onto at this time. The user account is restricted such that it may not be used to log on from the source workstation. The user account's password has expired. The referenced account is currently disabled and may not be logged onto. None of the information to be translated has been translated. The number of LUIDs requested may not be allocated with a single allocation. Indicates there are no more LUIDs to allocate. Indicates the sub-authority value is invalid for the particular use. Indicates the ACL structure is not valid. Indicates the SID structure is not valid. Indicates the security underscore descriptor structure is not valid. Indicates the specified procedure address cannot be found in the DLL. Bad image, HS is either not designed to run on Windows or it contains an error. Try installing the program again using the original installation media or contact your system administrator or the software vendor for support. Error status 0x. Technologies. An attempt was made to reference a token that doesn't exist. This is typically done by referencing the token associated with a thread when the thread is not impersonating a client. Indicates that an attempt to build either an inherited ACL or ACE was not successful. This can be caused by a number of things. One of the more probable causes is the replacement of a creator ID with an SID that didn't fit into the ACE or ACL. The range specified in NTUnlock file was not locked. An operation failed because the disk was full. The GUID allocation server is already disabled at the moment. The GUID allocation server is already enabled at the moment. Too many GUIDs were requested from the allocation server at once. The GUIDs could not be allocated because the authority agent was exhausted. The value provided was an invalid value for an identifier authority. There are no more authority agent values available for the given identifier authority value. An invalid volume label has been specified. A mapped section could not be extended. Specified section to flush does not map a data file. Indicates the specified image file did not contain a resource section. Indicates the specified resource type cannot be found in the image file. Indicates the specified resource name cannot be found in the image file. Exception, array bounds exceeded. Exception, floating point denormal operand. Exception, floating point division by 0. Exception, floating point inexact result. Exception, floating point invalid operation. Exception, floating point overflow. Exception, floating point stack check. Exception, floating point underflow. Exception, integer division by 0. Exception, integer overflow. Exception, privileged instruction. An attempt was made to install more paging files than the system supports. The volume for a file has been externally altered such that the opened file is no longer valid. When a block of memory is allotted for future updates, such as the memory allocated to hold discretionary access control and primary group information, successive updates may exceed the amount of memory originally allotted. Since quota may already have been charged to several processes which have handles to the object, it is not reasonable to alter the size of the allocated memory. Instead, a request that requires more memory than has been allotted must fail and the status_allotted_space_exceeded error returned. Insufficient system resources exist to complete the API. An attempt has been made to open a DFS exit path control file. Status_device_data_error. Status_device_not_connected. Status_device_power_failure. Virtual memory cannot be freed as base address is not the base of the region and a region size of 0 was specified. An attempt was made to free virtual memory which is not allocated. The working set is not big enough to allow the requested pages to be locked. Write protect error, the disk cannot be written to because it is write protected. Please remove the write protection from the volume HS and drive HS. Drive not ready, the drive is not ready for use, its door may be open. Please check drive HS and make sure that a disk is inserted and that the drive door is closed. The specified attributes are invalid, or incompatible with the attributes for the group as a whole. A specified impersonation level is invalid. Also used to indicate a required impersonation level was not provided. An attempt was made to open an anonymous level token. Anonymous tokens may not be opened. The validation information class requested was invalid. The type of a token object is inappropriate for its attempted use. The type of a token object is inappropriate for its attempted use. An attempt was made to execute an instruction at an unaligned address and the host system does not support unaligned instruction references. The maximum named pipe instance count has been reached. An instance of a named pipe cannot be found in the listening state. The named pipe is not in the connected or closing state. The specified pipe is set to complete operations and there are current I/O operations queued so it cannot be changed to queue operations. Technologies. The specified handle is not open to the server end of the named pipe. The specified named pipe is in the disconnected state. The specified named pipe is in the closing state. The specified named pipe is in the connected state. The specified named pipe is in the listening state. The specified named pipe is not in message mode. Device timeout. The specified I/O operation on HS was not completed before the timeout period expired. The specified file has been closed by another process. Profiling not started. Profiling not stopped. The past ACL did not contain the minimum required information. The file that was specified as a target is a directory and the caller specified that it could be anything but a directory. The request is not supported. This remote computer is not listening. A duplicate name exists on the network. The network path cannot be located. The network is busy. This device does not exist. The network BIOS command limit has been reached. An I/O adapter hardware error has occurred. The network responded incorrectly. An unexpected network error occurred. The remote adapter is not compatible. The printer queue is full. Space to store the file waiting to be printed is not available on the server. The requested print file has been cancelled. The network name was deleted. Network access is denied. Incorrect network resource type. The specified device type, LPT, for example, conflicts with the actual device type on the remote resource. Network name not found. The specified share name cannot be found on the remote server. The name limit for the local computer network adapter card was exceeded. The network BIOS session limit was exceeded. File sharing has been temporarily paused. No more connections can be made to this remote computer at this time because there are already as many connections as the computer can accept. Print or disk redirection is temporarily paused. A network data fault occurred. The number of active profiling objects is at the maximum and no more may be started. Incorrect volume. The target file of a rename request is located on a different device than the source of the rename request. The file specified has been renamed and thus cannot be modified. Network request timeout. The session with a remote server has been disconnected because the timeout interval for a request has expired. Indicates an attempt was made to operate on the security of an object that does not have security associated with it. Used to indicate that an operation cannot continue without blocking for I/O. Used to indicate that a read operation was done on an empty pipe. Configuration information could not be read from the domain controller, either because the machine is unavailable, or access has been denied. Indicates that a thread attempted to terminate itself by default called NT-terminated thread with null, and it was the last thread in the current process. Indicates the SAM server was in the wrong state to perform the desired operation. Indicates the domain was in the wrong state to perform the desired operation. This operation is only allowed for the primary domain controller of the domain. The specified domain did not exist. The specified domain already exists. An attempt was made to exceed the limit on the number of domains per server for this release. Error status returned when OPLOC request is denied. Error status returned when an invalid OPLOC acknowledgement is received by a file system. This error indicates that the requested operation cannot be completed due to a catastrophic media failure or on-disk data structure corruption. An internal error occurred. Indicates generic access types were contained in an access mask which should already be mapped to non-generic access types. Indicates a security descriptor is not in the necessary format, absolute or self-relative. Technologies. And access to a user buffer failed at an expected point in time. This code is defined since the caller does not want to accept status_access_violation in its filter. If an I/O error is returned which is not defined in the standard FSRTL filter, it is converted to the following error which is guaranteed to be in the filter. In this case information is lost, however, the filter correctly handles the exception. If an error is returned which is not defined in the standard FSRTL filter, it is converted to one of the following errors which is guaranteed to be in the filter. In this case information is lost, however, the filter correctly handles the exception. If an error is returned which is not defined in the standard FSRTL filter, it is converted to one of the following errors which is guaranteed to be in the filter. In this case information is lost, however, the filter correctly handles the exception. If an error is returned which is not defined in the standard FSRTL filter, it is converted to one of the following errors which is guaranteed to be in the filter. In this case information is lost, however, the filter correctly handles the exception. The requested action is restricted for use by logon processes only. The calling process has not registered as a logon process. An attempt has been made to start a new session manager or LSA logon session with an ID that is already in use. An invalid parameter was passed to a service or function as the first argument. An invalid parameter was passed to a service or function as the second argument. An invalid parameter was passed to a service or function as the third argument. An invalid parameter was passed to a service or function as the fourth argument. An invalid parameter was passed to a service or function as the fifth argument. An invalid parameter was passed to a service or function as the sixth argument. An invalid parameter was passed to a service or function as the seventh argument. An invalid parameter was passed to a service or function as the eighth argument. An invalid parameter was passed to a service or function as the ninth argument. An invalid parameter was passed to a service or function as the 10th argument. An invalid parameter was passed to a service or function as the 11th argument. An invalid parameter was passed to a service or function as the 12th argument. An attempt was made to access a network file, but the network software was not yet started. An attempt was made to start the redirector, but the redirector has already been started. A new guard page for the stack cannot be created. A specified authentication package is unknown. A malformed function table was encountered during an unwind operation. Indicates the specified environment variable name was not found in the specified environment block. Indicates that the directory trying to be deleted is not empty. Corrupt file, the file or directory HS is corrupt and unreadable. Please run the checkdisk utility. A requested opened file is not a directory. The logon session is not in a state that is consistent with the requested operation. An internal LSA error has occurred. An authentication package has requested the creation of a logon session, but the ID of an already existing logon session has been specified. A specified name string is too long for its intended use. The user attempted to force close the files on a redirected drive, but there were opened files on the drive, and the user did not specify a sufficient level of force. The user attempted to force close the files on a redirected drive, but there were opened directories on the drive, and the user did not specify a sufficient level of force. RTL FIND message could not locate the requested message ID in the message table resource. An attempt was made to access an exiting process. Indicates an invalid value has been provided for the login type requested. Indicates that an attempt was made to assign protection to a file system file or directory, and one of the SIDs in the security descriptor could not be translated into a GUID that could be stored by the file system. This causes the protection attempt to fail, which may cause a file creation attempt to fail. Indicates that an attempt has been made to impersonate via a named pipe that has not yet been read from. Indicates that the specified image is already loaded. Status _ABIOS not present. Status ABIOS lit not exist. Status ABIOS lit already owned. Status ABIOS not lit owner. Status ABIOS invalid command. Technologies. Status ABIOS invalid command. Status ABIOS invalid lid. Status ABIOS invalid selector. Indicates that an attempt was made to change the size of the LDT for a process that has no LDT. Indicates that an attempt was made to grow an LDT by setting its size, or that the size was not an even number of selectors. Indicates that the starting value for the LDT information was not an integral multiple of the selector size. Indicates that the user supplied an invalid descriptor when trying to set up LDT descriptors. The specified image file did not have the correct format. It appears to be NA format. Indicates that the transaction state of a registry subtree is incompatible with the requested operation. For example, a request has been made to start a new transaction with one already in progress, or a request has been made to apply a transaction when one is not currently in progress. Indicates an error has occurred during a registry transaction commit. The database has been left in an unknown, but probably inconsistent, state. The state of the registry transaction is left is committing. An attempt was made to map a file of size 0 with the maximum size specified as 0. Too many files are opened on a remote server. This error should only be returned by the Windows redirector on a remote drive. The I/O request was cancelled. An attempt has been made to remove a file or directory that cannot be deleted. Indicates a name specified as a remote computer name is syntactically invalid. An I/O request other than close was performed on a file after it has been deleted, which can only happen to a request which did not complete before the last handle was closed via NTC lose. Indicates an operation has been attempted on a built-in, special, SAM account which is incompatible with built-in accounts. For example, built-in accounts cannot be deleted. The operation requested may not be performed on the specified group because it is a built-in special group. The operation requested may not be performed on the specified user because it is a built-in special user. Indicates a member cannot be removed from a group because the group is currently the member's primary group. An I/O request other than close and several other special case operations was attempted using a file object that had already been closed. Indicates a process has too many threads to perform the requested action. For example, assignment of a primary token may only be performed when a process has 0 or 1 threads. An attempt was made to operate on a thread within a specific process, but the thread specified is not in the process specified. An attempt was made to establish a token for use as a primary token, but the token is already in use. A token can only be the primary token of one process at a time. Page file quota was exceeded. Out of virtual memory, your system is low on virtual memory. To ensure that Windows runs properly, increase the size of your virtual memory paging file. For more information, see Help. The specified image file did not have the correct format, it appears to be LA format. The specified image file did not have the correct format, it did not have an initial MZ. The specified image file did not have the correct format, it did not have a proper E_LFARLC in the MZ header. The specified image file did not have the correct format, it appears to be a 16-bit Windows image. The netlogon service cannot start because another netlogon service running in the domain conflicts with the specified role. The time at the primary domain controller is different than the time at the backup domain controller or member server by too large an amount. The SAM database on a Windows server is significantly out of synchronization with the copy on the domain controller. A complete synchronization is required. The program can't start because HS is missing from your computer. Try reinstalling the program to fix this problem. The NT_STATUS API failed. This error should never be returned to an application, it is a placeholder for the Windows LAN Manager redirector to use in its internal error mapping routines. Privilege failed, the I/O permissions for the process could not be changed. Ordinal not found, the ordinal LD could not be located in the dynamic link library HS. Entry point not found, the procedure entry point HS could not be located in the dynamic link library HS. Application exit by Ctrl+C, the application terminated as a result of a Ctrl+C. Technologies. Virtual circuit closed, the network transport on your computer has closed a network connection. There may or may not be I/O requests outstanding. Virtual circuit closed, the network transport on a remote computer has closed a network connection. There may or may not be I/O requests outstanding. Insufficient resources on remote computer, the remote computer has insufficient resources to complete the network request. For instance, there may not be enough memory available on the remote computer to carry out the request at this time. Virtual circuit closed, an existing connection, virtual circuit, has been broken at the remote computer. There is probably something wrong with the network software protocol or the network hardware on the remote computer. Virtual circuit closed, the network transport on your computer has closed a network connection because it had to wait too long for a response from the remote computer. The connection handle given to the transport was invalid. The address handle given to the transport was invalid. DLL initialization failed. Initialization of the dynamic link library HS failed. The process is terminating abnormally. Missing system file, the required system file HS is bad or missing. Application error, the exception S0x. Application error, the application was unable to start correctly, 0xLX. Click OK to close the application. Unable to create paging file, the creation of the paging file HS failed, LX. The requested size was LD. No paging file specified, no paging file was specified in the system configuration. Incorrect system call level, an invalid level was passed into the specified system call. Incorrect password to LAN Manager server, you specified an incorrect password to a LAN Manager 2, X or MSNet server. Exception: a real mode application issued a floating point instruction and floating point hardware is not present. The pipe operation has failed because the other end of the pipe has been closed. The registry is corrupt. The structure of one of the files that contains registry data is corrupt, or the image of the file in memory is corrupt, or the file could not be recovered because the alternate copy or log was absent or corrupt. An I/O operation initiated by the registry failed unrecoverably. The registry could not read in, or write out, or flush one of the files that contain the system's image of the registry. An event pair synchronization operation was performed using the thread-specific client-server event pair object, but no event pair object was associated with the thread. The volume does not contain a recognized file system. Please make sure that all required file system drivers are loaded and that the volume is not corrupt. No serial device was successfully initialized. The serial driver will unload. The specified local group does not exist. The specified account name is not a member of the group. The specified account name is already a member of the group. The specified local group already exists. A requested type of logon, e.g., interactive, network, service, is not granted by the target system's local security policy. Please ask the system administrator to grant the necessary form of logon. The maximum number of secrets that may be stored in a single system has been exceeded. The length and number of secrets is limited to satisfy United States State Department export restrictions. The length of a secret exceeds the maximum length allowed. The length and number of secrets is limited to satisfy United States State Department export restrictions. The Local Security Authority (LSA) database contains an internal inconsistency. The requested operation cannot be performed in full screen mode. During a logon attempt, the user's security context accumulated too many security IDs. This is a very unusual situation. Remove the user from some global or local groups to reduce the number of security IDs to incorporate into the security context. The user has requested a type of logon, e.g., interactive or network, that has not been granted. An administrator has control over who may log on interactively and through the network. The system has attempted to load or restore a file into the registry, and the specified file is not in the format of a registry file. An attempt was made to explicitly access the secondary copy of information via a device control to the fault tolerance driver, and the secondary copy is not present in the system. A configuration registry node representing a driver service entry was ill-formed and did not contain required value entries. An illegal character was encountered. For a multi-byte character set, this includes a lead byte without a succeeding trail byte. For the Unicode character set, this includes the characters hexadecimal FFFF and hexadecimal FFFE. Technologies. No mapping for the Unicode character exists in the target multi-byte code page. The Unicode character is not defined in the Unicode character set installed on the system. The paging file cannot be created on a floppy diskette. Floppy disk error: while accessing a floppy disk, an ID address mark was not found. Floppy disk error: while accessing a floppy disk, the track address from the sector ID field was found to be different than the track address maintained by the controller. Floppy disk error: the floppy disk controller reported an error that is not recognized by the floppy disk driver. Floppy disk error: while accessing a floppy disk, the controller returned inconsistent results via its registers. Hard disk error: while accessing the hard disk, a recalibrate operation failed, even after retries. Hard disk error: while accessing the hard disk, a disk operation failed even after retries. Hard disk error: while accessing the hard disk, a disk controller reset was needed, but even that failed. An attempt was made to open a device that was sharing an IRQ with other devices. At least one other device that uses that IRQ was already opened. Two concurrent opens of devices that share an IRQ and only work via interrupts is not supported for the particular bus type that the devices use. FT orphaning: a disk that is part of a fault-tolerant volume can no longer be accessed. Tape could not be partitioned. When accessing a new tape of a multi-volume partition, the current block size is incorrect. Tape partition information could not be found when loading a tape. Attempt to lock the eject media mechanism fails. Unload media fails. Physical end of tape was detected. No media, there is no media in the drive. Please insert media into drive HS. A member could not be added to or removed from the local group because the member does not exist. A new member could not be added to a local group because the member has the wrong account type. Illegal operation attempted on a registry key which has been marked for deletion. System could not allocate required space in a registry log. Too many SIDs have been specified. An attempt was made to create a symbolic link in a registry key that already has subkeys or values. An attempt was made to create a stable subkey under a volatile parent key. An error was detected between two drivers or within an I/O driver. The device is not in a valid state to perform this request. The I/O device reported an I/O error. A protocol error was detected between the driver and the device. This operation is only allowed for the primary domain controller of the domain. Log file space is insufficient to support this operation. A write operation was attempted to a volume after it was dismounted. The workstation does not have a trust secret for the primary domain in the local LSA database. The SAM database on the Windows server does not have a computer account for this workstation trust relationship. The logon request failed because the trust relationship between the primary domain and the trusted domain failed. The event log file is corrupt. No event log file could be opened. The event log service did not start. The network logon failed. This may be because the validation authority can't be reached. An attempt was made to acquire a mutant such that its maximum count would have been exceeded. An attempt was made to log on, but the netlogon service was not started. The user's account has expired. Exception, possible deadlock condition. An attempt was made to establish a session to a network server, but there are already too many sessions established to that server. The log file has changed between reads. A volume has been accessed for which a file system driver is required that has not yet been loaded. A requested file lock operation cannot be processed due to an invalid byte range. Invalid ACE condition, the specified access control entry, ACE, contains an invalid condition. Duplicate privileges were specified for the token. A portion of the file system requires repair. Quota support is not enabled on the system. The operation failed because the application is not part of an application package. Technologies. A remote open failed because the network open restrictions were not satisfied. There is no user session key for the specified logon session. The remote user session has been deleted. Indicates the specified resource language ID cannot be found in the image file. Insufficient server resources exist to complete the request. The size of the buffer is invalid for the specified operation. The transport rejected the network address specified due to an invalid use of a wildcard. The transport address could not be opened because all the available addresses are in use. The transport address could not be opened because it already exists. The transport address is now closed. The transport connection is now disconnected. The transport connection has been reset. The transport cannot dynamically acquire any more nodes. The transport aborted a pending transaction. The transport timed out a request waiting for a response. The transport did not receive a release for a pending response. The transport did not find a transaction matching the specific token. The transport had previously responded to a transaction request. The transport does not recognize the transaction request identifier specified. The transport does not recognize the transaction request type specified. The transport can only process the specified request on the server side of a session. The transport can only process the specified request on the client side of a session. Unexpected failure in debug active process. An unexpected failure occurred while processing a debug active process API request. You may choose OK to terminate the process, or cancel to ignore the error. Data not accepted. The TDI client could not handle the data received during an indication. Unable to retrieve browser server list. The list of servers for this workgroup is not currently available. NTVDM encountered a hard error. Cancel timeout. The driver HS failed to complete a cancelled I/O request in the allotted time. Reply message mismatch. An attempt was made to reply to an LPC message, but the thread specified by the client ID in the message was not waiting on that message. Mapped view alignment incorrect. An attempt was made to map a view of a file, but either the specified base address or the offset into the file were not aligned on the proper allocation granularity. Bad image checksum. The image HS is possibly corrupt. The header checksum does not match the computed checksum. Delayed write failed. Windows was unable to save all the data for the file HS. The data has been lost. This error may be caused by a failure of your computer hardware or network connection. Please try to save this file elsewhere. The user's password must be changed before signing in. The object was not found. The stream is not a tiny stream. A transaction recover failed. The request must be handled by the Stack Overflow code. A consistency check failed. The attempt to insert the ID in the index failed because the ID is already in the index. The attempt to set the object's ID failed because the object already has an ID. Internal OFS status codes indicating how an allocation operation is handled. Either it is retried after the containing onode is moved or the extent stream is converted to a large stream. The request needs to be retried. The attempt to find the object found an object matching by ID on the volume, but it is out of the scope of the handle used for the operation. The bucket array must be grown. Retry transaction after doing so. The property set specified does not exist on the object. The user kernel marshalling buffer has overflowed. The supplied variant structure contains invalid data. The user account has been automatically locked because too many invalid logon attempts or password change attempts have been requested. NTC-lose was called on a handle that was protected from close via NTSTATUS object. The transport connection attempt was refused by the remote system. The transport connection was gracefully closed. An address has not yet been associated with the transport endpoint. An operation was attempted on a non-existent transport connection. Technologies. An invalid operation was attempted on an active transport connection. The remote network is not reachable by the transport. The remote system is not reachable by the transport. The remote system does not support the transport protocol. No service is operating at the destination port of the transport on the remote system. The request was aborted. The transport connection was aborted by the local system. The specified buffer contains ill-formed data. The requested operation cannot be performed on a file with a user-mapped section open. Audit failed. An attempt to generate a security audit failed. The timer resolution was not previously set by the current process. A connection to the server could not be made because the limit on the number of concurrent connections for this account has been reached. Attempting to log in during an unauthorized time of day for this account. The account is not authorized to log in from this station. MP image mismatch. The image HS has been modified for use on a uniprocessor system, but you are running it on a multiprocessor machine. Please reinstall the image file. There is insufficient account information to log you on. Invalid DLL entry point. The dynamic link library HS is not written correctly. The stack pointer has been left in an inconsistent state. The entry point should be declared as WINAPI or STDCALL. Select yes to fail the DLL load. Select no to continue execution. Selecting no may cause the application to operate incorrectly. Invalid service callback entry point. The HS service is not written correctly. The stack pointer has been left in an inconsistent state. The callback entry point should be declared as WINAPI or STDCALL. Selecting OK will cause the service to continue operation. However, the service process may operate incorrectly. The server received the messages but did not send a reply. There is an IP address conflict with another system on the network. There is an IP address conflict with another system on the network. Low on registry space. The system has reached the maximum size allowed for the system part of the registry. Additional storage requests will be ignored. The contacted server does not support the indicated part of the DFS namespace. A callback return system service cannot be executed when no callback is active. The service being accessed is licensed for a particular number of connections. No more connections can be made to the service at this time because there are already as many connections as the service can accept. The password provided is too short to meet the policy of your user account. Please choose a longer password. The policy of your user account does not allow you to change passwords too frequently. This is done to prevent users from changing back to a familiar, but potentially discovered, password. If you feel your password has been compromised, then please contact your administrator immediately to have a new one assigned. You have attempted to change your password to one that you have used in the past. The policy of your user account does not allow this. Please select a password that you have not previously used. You have attempted to load a legacy device driver while its device instance had been disabled. The specified compression format is unsupported. The specified hardware profile configuration is invalid. Driver entry point not found. The HS device driver could not locate the ordinal LD in driver HS. Application error. The application attempted to release a resource it did not own. Click OK to terminate the application. An attempt was made to create more links on a file than the file system supports. The specified quota list is internally inconsistent with its descriptor. The specified file has been relocated to offline storage. Windows evaluation notification. The evaluation period for this installation of Windows has expired. This system will shut down in 1 hour. To restore access to this installation of Windows, please upgrade this installation using a licensed distribution of this product. Illegal system DLL relocation. The system DLL-HS was relocated in memory. The application will not run properly. The relocation occurred because the DLL-HS occupied an address range reserved for Windows system DLLs. The vendor supplying the DLL should be contacted for a new DLL. License violation. The system has detected tampering with your registered product type. This is a violation of your software license. Tampering with product type is not permitted. Technologies. DLL initialization failed. The application failed to initialize because the Windows station is shutting down. Unable to load device driver. HS device driver could not be loaded. Error status was 0xX. DFS is unavailable on the contacted server. An operation was attempted to a volume after it was dismounted. An internal error occurred in the Win32x86 emulation subsystem. Win32x86 emulation subsystem floating point stack check. The validation process needs to continue on to the next step. There was no match for the specified key in the index. There are no more matches for the current index enumeration. The NTFS file or directory is not a reparse point. The Windows IO reparse tag passed for the NTFS reparse point is invalid. The Windows IO reparse tag does not match the one present in the NTFS reparse point. The user data passed for the NTFS reparse point is invalid. The password provided is too long to meet the policy of your user account. Please choose a shorter password. An application internal exception has occurred. The range could not be added to the range list because of a conflict. The specified medium changer source element contains no media. The specified medium changer destination element already contains media. The specified medium changer element does not exist. The specified element is contained within a magazine that is no longer present. The device requires reinitialization due to hardware errors. The device has indicated that cleaning is necessary. The device has indicated that its door is open. Further operations require it closed and secured. The file encryption attempt failed. The file decryption attempt failed. The specified range could not be found in the range list. There is no encryption recovery policy configured for this system. The required encryption driver is not loaded for this system. The file was encrypted with a different encryption driver than is currently loaded. There are no EFS keys defined for the user. The specified file is not encrypted. The specified file is not in the defined EFS export format. The specified file is encrypted and the user does not have the ability to decrypt it. The system has awoken. The guide passed was not recognized as valid by a WMI data provider. The instance name passed was not recognized as valid by a WMI data provider. The data item id passed was not recognized as valid by a WMI data provider. The WMI request could not be completed and should be retried. The policy object is shared and can only be modified at the root. The policy object does not exist when it should. The requested policy information only lives in the Ds. The volume must be upgraded to enable this feature. The tracking workstation service is not running. The server process is running under a SID different than that required by client. The specified directory service attribute or value does not exist. The directory service is busy. The directory service is not available. The directory service was unable to allocate a relative identifier. The directory service has exhausted the pool of relative identifiers. The requested operation could not be performed because the directory service is not the master for that type of operation. The directory service was unable to initialize the subsystem that allocates relative identifiers. The requested operation did not satisfy one or more constraints associated with the class of the object. The directory service can perform the requested operation only on a leaf object. The directory service cannot perform the requested operation on the relatively defined name, RDN, attribute of an object. The directory service detected an attempt to modify the object class of an object. An error occurred while performing a cross-domain move operation. Unable to contact the global catalog server. A group marked use for deny only cannot be enabled. Exception, multiple floating point faults. Exception, multiple floating point traps. Technologies. The device has been removed. The volume change journal is not active. The requested interface is not supported. The directory service detected the subsystem that allocates relative identifiers is disabled. This can occur as a protective mechanism when the system determines a significant portion of relative identifiers (RIDs) have been exhausted. Please see http://go.microsoft.com/flink/ Linked equals 228,610 for recommended diagnostic steps in the procedure to enable account creation. A directory service resource limit has been exceeded. System standby failed. The driver HS does not support standby mode. Updating this driver may allow the system to go to standby mode. The WMI data item or data block is read only. The WMI data item or data block could not be changed. Virtual memory minimum too low. Your system is low on virtual memory. Windows is increasing the size of your virtual memory paging file. During this process, memory requests for some applications may be denied. For more information, see Help. Exception, register NAT consumption faults. A NAT value is consumed on a non-speculative instruction. The medium changer's transport element contains media, which is causing the operation to fail. Security Accounts Manager initialization failed because of the following error, HS error status, 0xX. Please shut down this system and reboot into Directory Services Restore mode. Check the event log for more detailed information. This operation is supported only when you are connected to the server. A device was removed, so enumeration must be restarted. The journal entry has been deleted from the journal. Device will not start without a reboot. Current device power state cannot support this request. The specified group type is invalid. Cannot change to security disabled group because of having primary members in this group. The WMI operation is not supported by the data block or method. There is not enough power to complete the requested operation. Security Account Manager needs to get the boot key from floppy disk. Directory service cannot start. Directory services could not start because of the following error, HS error status, 0xX. Please shut down this system and reboot into Directory Services Restore mode. Check the event log for more detailed information. Security Accounts Manager initialization failed because of the following error, HS error status, 0xX. Please click OK to shut down this system and reboot into safe mode. Check the event log for more detailed information. The requested operation can be performed only on a global catalog server. Status _multiple _fault _violation. The directory or file cannot be created. The system is in the process of shutting down. Directory services could not start because of the following error, HS error status, 0xX. Please click OK to shut down the system. You can use the recovery console to diagnose the system further. The client is trying to negotiate a context and the server requires user to user but didn't send a TGT reply. An object ID was not found in the file. Unable to accomplish the requested task because the local machine does not have any IP addresses. The supplied credential handle does not match the credential associated with the security context. The crypto system or checksum function is invalid because a required function is unavailable. The number of maximum ticket referrals has been exceeded. The local machine must be a Kerberos KDC domain controller, and it is not. The KDC reply contained more than one principal name. Expected to find PA data for a hint of what E-type to use, but it was not found. The client certificate does not contain a valid UPN, or does not match the client name in the logon request. Please contact your administrator. SmartCard logon is required and was not used. An invalid request was sent to the KDC. The KDC was unable to generate a referral for the service requested. The encryption type requested is not supported by the KDC. A system shutdown is in progress. This operation is not supported on a computer running Windows Server 2003 for Small Business Server. The WMIGUID is no longer available. Collection or events for the WMIGUID is already disabled. Collection or events for the WMIGUID is already enabled. Technologies. The master file table on the volume is too fragmented to complete this operation. Copy protection failure. Copy protection error, the given sector does not contain a valid key. Copy protection error, DVD session key not established. Copy protection error, the read failed because the sector is encrypted. Copy protection error, the given DVD's region does not correspond to the region setting of the drive. Copy protection error, the drive's region setting may be permanent. EAS policy requires that the user change their password before this operation can be performed. The Kerberos protocol encountered an error while validating the KDC certificate during SmartCard logon. There is more information in the system event log. The target server does not have acceptable Kerberos credentials. The transport determined that the remote system is down. An unsupported pre-authentication mechanism was presented to the Kerberos package. The encryption algorithm used on the source file needs a bigger key buffer than the one used on the destination file. An attempt to remove a process's debug port was made, but a port was not already associated with the process. Debugger inactive. Windows may have been started without kernel debugging enabled. This version of Windows is not compatible with the behavior version of directory forest, domain or domain controller. The specified event is currently not being audited. The machine account was created pre-NT4. The account needs to be recreated. The specified image file did not have the correct format, it appears to be a 32-bit Windows image. The specified image file did not have the correct format, it appears to be a 64-bit Windows image. Client's supplied SSPI channel bindings were incorrect. The client's session has expired, so the client must re-authenticate to continue accessing the remote resources. AFLP dialog cancelled, thus preventing the application from starting. The SID filtering operation removed all SIDs. The driver was not loaded because the system is booting into safe mode. The driver was not loaded because it failed its initialization call. The HS encountered an error while applying power or reading the device configuration. This may be caused by a failure of your hardware or by a poor connection. The create operation failed because the name contained at least one mount point which resolves to a volume to which the specified device object is not attached. A machine check error has occurred. Please check the system event log for additional information. System hive size has exceeded its limit. The directory service is shutting down. The local account store does not contain secret material for the specified account. The system was not able to allocate enough memory to perform a stack switch. A heap has been corrupted. An incorrect PIN was presented to the smart card. The smart card is blocked. No smart card available. The requested certificate does not exist on the smart card. The requested key set does not exist. A communication error with the smart card has been detected. The system cannot contact a domain controller to service the authentication request. Please try again later. The smart card certificate used for authentication has been revoked. Please contact your system administrator. There may be additional information in the event log. An untrusted certificate authority was detected while processing the smart card certificate used for authentication. Please contact your system administrator. The revocation status of the smart card certificate used for authentication could not be determined. Please contact your system administrator. The smart card certificate used for authentication was not trusted. Please contact your system administrator. The smart card certificate used for authentication has expired. Please contact your system administrator. The smart card provider could not perform the action since the context was acquired as silent. The requested name already exists as a unique identifier. The requested object has a non-unique identifier and cannot be retrieved. Kerberos sub-protocol user to user is required. The system detected an overrun of a stack-based buffer in this application. This overrun could potentially allow a malicious user to gain control of this application. Technologies. The Kerberos subsystem encountered an error. A service for user protocol request was made against a domain controller which does not support service for user. Technologies. The revocation status of the domain controller certificate used for smart card authentication could not be determined. There is additional information in the system event log. Please contact your system administrator. An untrusted certificate authority was detected while processing the domain controller certificate used for authentication. There is additional information in the system event log. Please contact your system administrator. The domain controller certificate used for smart card logon has expired. Please contact your system administrator with the contents of your system event log. The domain controller certificate used for smart card logon has been revoked. Please contact your system administrator with the contents of your system event log. Data present in one of the parameters is more than the function can operate on. The system has failed to hibernate. The error code is HS. Hibernation will be disabled until the system is restarted. An attempt to delay load a.dll or get a function address in a delay loaded.dll failed. HS is a 16-bit application. You do not have permissions to execute 16-bit applications. Check your permissions with your system administrator. The authentication failed since NTLM was blocked. An assertion failure has occurred. Application verifier has found an error in the current process. An exception has occurred in a user mode callback and the kernel callback frame should be removed. Illegal operation attempted on a registry key which has already been unloaded. Compression is disabled for this volume. The requested operation could not be completed due to a file system limitation. Windows cannot verify the digital signature for this file. A recent hardware or software change might have installed a file that is signed incorrectly or damaged, or that might be malicious software from an unknown source. The implementation is not capable of performing the request. The requested operation is out of order with respect to other operations. An operation attempted to exceed an implementation-defined limit. The requested operation requires elevation. The required security context does not exist. The PKU2U protocol encountered an error while attempting to utilize the associated certificates. The operation was attempted beyond the valid data length of the file. The page fault mappings changed in the middle of processing a fault, so the operation must be retried. The attempt to purge this file from memory failed to purge some or all the data from memory. Indicates a particular security ID may not be assigned as the label of an object. The requested system device cannot be identified due to multiple indistinguishable devices potentially matching the identification criteria. The requested system device cannot be found. This boot application must be restarted. The specified session is invalid. The specified thread is not in a session. The specified wait is invalid. The operation was paused. No ranges for the specified operation were able to be processed. The physical resources of this disk have been exhausted. The application cannot be started. Try reinstalling the application to fix the problem. Source destination device unreachable. The device is unreachable. Invalid proxy data token. The token representing the data is invalid. The file server is temporarily unavailable. The file is temporarily unavailable. The application cannot be started because it is currently updating. The specified copy of the requested data could not be read. The specified data could not be written to any of the copies. One or more copies of data on this device may be out of sync. No writes may be performed until a data integrity scan is completed. A data integrity checksum error occurred. Data in the file stream is corrupt. Alignment violation, the command specified a data offset that does not align to the device's granularity, alignment. Operation in progress, an operation is currently in progress with the device. Scrub is disabled on the specified file. The storage device does not provide redundancy. An operation is not supported on a directory. I/O operation timeout, the specified I/O operation failed to complete within the expected time period. Technologies. An error in a system binary was detected. Try refreshing the PC to fix the problem. The share is temporarily unavailable. The specified task name is invalid. The specified task index is invalid. The specified thread is already joining a task. A callback has requested to bypass native code. The central access policy specified is not defined on the target machine. The central access policy obtained from Active Directory is The central access policy obtained from Active Directory is invalid. Unable to finish the requested operation because the specified process is not a GUI process. Fail-fast exception, a fail-fast exception occurred. Exception handlers will not be invoked and the process will be terminated immediately. Windows cannot verify the digital signature for this file. The signing certificate for this file has been revoked. The ALPC port is closed. The ALPC message requested is no longer available. The ALPC message supplied is invalid. The ALPC message has been cancelled. Invalid recursive dispatch attempt. The ALPC port does not accept new request messages. The resource requested is already in use. The hardware has reported an uncorrectable memory error. Either the target process, or the target threads containing process, is a protected process. A thread is getting dispatched with MCA exception because of MCA. The symbolic link cannot be followed because its type is disabled. No mapping for the Unicode character exists in the target multi-byte code page. The provided callback is already registered. The provided context did not match the target. An invalid thread, handle P, is specified for this operation. Possibly, a threadpool worker thread was specified. A threadpool worker thread enter a callback, which left with preferred languages set. This is unexpected, indicating that the callback missed clearing them. The attempted operation required self-healing to be enabled. The requested file operation failed because the storage quota was exceeded. To free up disk space, move files to a different location or delete unnecessary files. For more information, contact your system administrator. Windows discovered a corruption in the file, HS. This file has now been repaired. Please check if any data in the file was lost because of the corruption. The requested file operation failed because the storage policy blocks that type of file. For more information, contact your system administrator. The operation could not be completed due to bad clusters on disk. The operation could not be completed because the volume is dirty. Please run check disk and try again. The volume repair could not be performed while it is online. Please schedule to take the volume offline so that it can be repaired. The volume repair was not successful. One of the volume corruption logs is full. Further corruptions that may be detected won't be logged. One of the volume corruption logs is internally corrupted and needs to be recreated. The volume may contain undetected corruptions and must be scanned. One of the volume corruption logs is unavailable for being operated on. One of the volume corruption logs was deleted while still having corruption records in them. The volume contains detected corruptions and must be scanned. One of the volume corruption logs was cleared by checkdisk and no longer contains real corruptions. Orphaned files exist on the volume but could not be recovered because no more new names could be created in the recovery directory. Files must be moved from the recovery directory. This file is checked out or locked for editing by another user. The file must be checked out before saving changes. The file type being saved or retrieved has been blocked. The file size exceeds the limit allowed and cannot be saved. Access denied. Before opening files in this location, you must first browse to the website and select the option to log in automatically. Operation did not complete successfully because the file contains a virus or potentially unwanted software. This file contains a virus or potentially unwanted software and cannot be opened. Due to the nature of this virus or potentially unwanted software, the file has been removed from this location. The resources required for this device conflict with the MCFG table. The operation did not complete successfully because it would cause an OP lock to be broken. The caller has requested that existing OP locks not be broken. Technologies. Bad key. Bad data. Key does not exist. Access to the specified file handle has been revoked. Wow, assertion error. The cryptographic signature is invalid. The cryptographic provider does not support HMAC. The computed authentication tag did not match the input authentication tag. The requested state transition is invalid and cannot be performed. The supplied PEP information version is invalid. The IPsec queue overflowed. The neighbor discovery queue overflowed. An ICMP hop limit exceeded error was received. The protocol is not installed on the local machine. An operation or data has been rejected while on the network fast path. Windows was unable to parse the requested XML data. An error was encountered while processing an XML digital signature. Indicates that the caller made the connection request in the wrong routing compartment. Indicates that there was an authip failure when attempting to connect to the remote host. The specified OID cannot be found. The system is not authoritative for the specified account and therefore cannot complete the operation. Please retry the operation using the provider associated with this account. If this is an online provider, please use the provider's online site. Hash generation for the specified version and hash type is not enabled on server. The hash requests is not present or not up to date with the current file contents. The requested operation is not supported for the specified handle. The requested run level switch cannot be completed successfully since one or more services refuse to stop or restart. The service has an invalid run level setting. The run level for a service must not be higher than the run level of its dependent services. The requested run level switch cannot be completed successfully since one or more services will not stop or restart within the specified timeout. This operation is only valid in the context of an app container. Fast cache data not found. Fast cache data expired. Fast cache data corrupt. Fast cache data has exceeded its max size and cannot be updated. Fast cache has been rearmed and requires a reboot until it can be updated. Debugger did not perform a state change. Debugger has found the application is not idle. The string binding is invalid. The binding handle is not the correct type. The binding handle is invalid. The RPC protocol sequence is not supported. The RPC protocol sequence is invalid. The string UUID is invalid. The endpoint format is invalid. The network address is invalid. No endpoint was found. The timeout value is invalid. The object UUID was not found. The object UUID has already been registered. The type UUID has already been registered. The RPC server is already listening. No protocol sequences have been registered. The RPC server is not listening. The manager type is unknown. The interface is unknown. There are no bindings. There are no protocol sequences. The endpoint cannot be created. Not enough resources are available to complete this operation. The RPC server is unavailable. The RPC server is too busy to complete this operation. The network options are invalid. There are no remote procedure calls active on this thread. The remote procedure call failed. The remote procedure call failed and did not execute. An RPC protocol error occurred. The transfer syntax is not supported by the RPC server. The type UUID is not supported. The tag is invalid. The array bounds are invalid. The binding does not contain an entry name. Technologies. The name syntax is invalid. The name syntax is not supported. No network address is available to use to construct a UUID. The endpoint is a duplicate. The authentication type is unknown. The maximum number of calls is too small. The string is too long. The RPC protocol sequence was not found. The procedure number is out of range. The binding does not contain any authentication information. The authentication service is unknown. The authentication level is unknown. The security context is invalid. The authorization service is unknown. The entry is invalid. The operation cannot be performed. There are no more endpoints available from the endpoint mapper. No interfaces have been exported. The entry name is incomplete. The version option is invalid. There are no more members. There is nothing to unexport. The interface was not found. The entry already exists. The entry is not found. The name service is unavailable. The network address family is invalid. The requested operation is not supported. No security context is available to allow impersonation. An internal error occurred in RPC. The RPC server attempted an integer divide by 0. An addressing error occurred in the RPC server. A floating point operation at the RPC server caused a divide by 0. A floating point underflow occurred at the RPC server. A floating point overflow occurred at the RPC server. The list of RPC servers available for auto-handle binding has been exhausted. The file designated by DCERPCCHARTRANS cannot be opened. The file containing the character translation table has fewer than 512 bytes. A null context handle is passed as an in parameter. The context handle does not match any known context handles. The context handle changed during a call. The binding handles passed to a remote procedure call do not match. A null reference pointer was passed to the stub. The enumeration value is out of range. The byte count is too small. The stub received bad data. A remote procedure call is already in progress for this thread. There are no more bindings. The group member was not found. The endpoint mapper database entry could not be created. The object UUID is the nil UUID. No interfaces have been registered. The remote procedure call was cancelled. The binding handle does not contain all required information. A communications failure occurred during a remote procedure call. The requested authentication level is not supported. No principal name registered. The error specified is not a valid Windows RPC error code. A UUID that is valid only on this computer has been allocated. A security package specific error occurred. Thread is not cancelled. Invalid operation on the encoding, decoding handle. Incompatible version of the serializing package. Incompatible version of the RPC stub. The RPC pipe object is invalid or corrupted. An invalid operation was attempted on an RPC pipe object. Unsupported RPC pipe version. The RPC pipe object has already been closed. The RPC call completed before all pipes were processed. No more data is available from the RPC pipe. Invalid asynchronous remote procedure call handle. Invalid asynchronous RPC call handle for this operation. Access to the HTTP proxy is denied. HTTP proxy server rejected the connection because the cookie authentication failed. Some data remains to be sent in the request buffer. An attempt was made to run an invalid AML opcode. The AML interpreter stack has overflowed. An inconsistent state has occurred. An attempt was made to access an array outside of its bounds. A required argument was not specified. A fatal error has occurred. Technologies. An invalid supername was specified. An invalid supername was specified. An argument with an incorrect type was specified. An object with an incorrect type was specified. A target with an incorrect type was specified. An address failed to translate. An incorrect event type was specified. A handler for the target already exists. Invalid data for the target was specified. An invalid region for the target was specified. An attempt was made to access a field outside of the defined range. The global system lock could not be acquired. An attempt was made to reinitialize the ACPI subsystem. The ACPI subsystem has not been initialized. An incorrect mutex was specified. The mutex is not currently owned. An attempt was made to access the mutex by a process that was not the owner. An error occurred during an access to region space. An attempt was made to use an incorrect table. The registration of an ACPI event failed. The client drive mapping service has connected on terminal connection. The client drive mapping service has disconnected on terminal connection. A close operation is pending on the terminal connection. There are no free output buffers available. The modem INF file was not found. The modem did not accept the command sent to it. Verify the configured modem name matches the attached modem. Busy signal detected at remote site on callback. Voice detected at remote site on callback. Transport driver error. The system license has expired. Your logon request is denied. The specified session cannot be found. The task you are trying to do can't be completed because remote desktop services is currently busy. Please try again in a few minutes. Other users should still be able to log on. An attempt has been made to connect to a session whose video mode is not supported by the current client. The application attempted to enable DOS graphics mode. DOS graphics mode is not supported. The requested operation can be performed only on the system console. This is most often the result of a driver or system DLL requiring direct console access. The client failed to respond to the server connect message. Disconnecting the console session is not supported. Reconnecting a disconnected session to the console is not supported. The request to control another session remotely was denied. The requested session cannot be controlled remotely. You cannot control your own session, a session that is trying to control your session, a session that has no user logged on, nor control other sessions from the console. The requested session is not configured to allow remote control. Remote control could not be terminated because the specified session is not currently being remotely controlled. Your interactive logon privilege has been disabled. Please contact your system administrator. The target session is incompatible with the current session. Windows can't connect to your session because a problem occurred in the Windows video subsystem. Try connecting again later, or contact the server administrator for assistance. A device is missing in the System BIOS MPS table. This device will not be used. Please contact your system vendor for System BIOS update. A translator failed to translate resources. Reissue the given operation as a cached I/O operation. The resource loader failed to find MUI file. The resource loader failed to load MUI file because the file failed to pass validation. The RC manifest is corrupted with garbage data or unsupported version or missing required item. The RC manifest has invalid culture name. The resource loader cache doesn't have loaded MUI entry. User stopped resource enumeration. A handler was not defined by the filter for this operation. Internal error code used by the filter manager to determine if a FASTIO operation should be forced down the IRP path. Mini filters should never return this value. An invalid name request was made. The name requested cannot be retrieved at this time. The filter manager was not initialized when a filter tried to register. Make sure that the filter manager is getting loaded as a driver. The filter is not ready for attachment to volumes because it has not finished initializing. Start filtering has not been called. The filter manager had an internal error from which it cannot recover, therefore the operation has been failed. This is usually the result of a filter returning an invalid value from a pre-operation callback. Technologies. The object specified for this action is in the process of being deleted, therefore the action requested cannot be completed at this time. A duplicate handler definition has been provided for an operation. The callback data queue has been disabled. Do not attach the filter to the volume at this time. Do not detach the filter from the volume at this time. The system could not find the filter specified. The system could not find the volume specified. The system could not find the instance specified. The name requested was not found in filter manager's name cache and could not be retrieved from the file system. The requested device object does not exist for the given volume. The specified transaction context is already enlisted in a transaction. No waiter is present for the filter's reply to this message. The file system database resource is in use. Registration cannot complete at this time. The requested section is not present in the activation context. Windows was not able to process the application binding information. Please refer to your system event log for further information. The referenced assembly is not installed on your system. The manifest file contains one or more syntax errors. The requested lookup key was not found in any active activation context. A component version required by the application conflicts with another component version already active. The type requested activation context section does not match the query API used. The referenced assembly could not be found. The activation context being deactivated is not the most recently activated one. The activation context being deactivated is not active for the current thread of execution. The application isolation metadata for this process or thread has become corrupt. The identity string is malformed. This may be due to a trailing comma, more than 2 unnamed attributes, missing attribute name or missing attribute value. A component's file does not match the verification information present in the component manifest. The component identities are different. The character encoding in the XML declaration did not match the encoding used in the document. The size of the manifest exceeds the maximum allowed. A generic command executable returned a result that indicates failure. A component is missing file verification information in its manifest. The cluster node is not valid. The cluster node already exists. A node is in the process of joining the cluster. The cluster node was not found. The cluster network already exists. The cluster request is not valid for this object. The cluster node is down. The cluster node is not reachable. The cluster node is not a member of the cluster. The cluster network is not valid. No network adapters are available. The cluster node is up. The cluster node is paused. The cluster node is not paused. The cluster node has been poisoned. The path does not belong to a cluster shared volume. The operation has failed. CSVFS does not allow block I/O in redirected mode. The function attempted to use a name that is reserved for use by another transaction. The transaction handle associated with this operation is not valid. The requested operation was made in the context of a transaction that is no longer active. The transaction manager was unable to be successfully initialized. Transacted operations are not supported. Transaction support within the specified resource manager is not started or was shut down due to an error. The metadata of the ERM has been corrupted. The ERM will not function. The resource manager has attempted to prepare a transaction that it has not successfully joined. The specified directory does not contain a file system resource manager. The log could not be set to the requested size. The requested log size for the file system resource manager is invalid. The requested propagation protocol was not registered as a CRM. Technologies. An attempt to create space in the transactional resource manager's log failed. The failure status has been recorded in the event log. The object, file, stream, link corresponding to the handle has been deleted by a transaction savepoint rollback. The handle has been invalidated by a transaction. The most likely cause is the presence of memory mapping on a file or an open handle when the transaction ended or rolled back to savepoint. There is no transaction metadata on the file. The log data is corrupt. The transaction outcome is unavailable because the resource manager responsible for it has disconnected. The request was rejected because the enlistment in question is not a superior enlistment. The transactional resource manager is already consistent. Recovery is not needed. The transactional resource manager has already been started. The operation would involve a single file with 2 transactional resource managers and is therefore not allowed. The $TXF directory must be empty for this operation to succeed. The operation could not be completed because the transaction manager does not have a log. A rollback could not be scheduled because a previously scheduled rollback has already executed or been queued for execution. The transactional metadata attribute on the file or directory HS is corrupt and unreadable. The request to thaw frozen transactions was ignored because transactions had not previously been frozen. The target volume is not a snapshot volume. This operation is only valid on a volume mounted as a snapshot. The call to create a transaction manager object failed because the TM identity stored in the log file does not match the TM identity that was passed in as an argument. I/O was attempted on a section object that has been floated as a result of a transaction ending. There is no valid data. The specified transaction was unable to be opened because it was not found. The specified enlistment was unable to be opened because it was not found. The call to create a superior enlistment on this transaction object could not be completed because the transaction object specified for the enlistment is a subordinate branch of the transaction. Only the root of the transaction can be enlisted on as a superior. The transaction does not have a superior enlistment. The handle is no longer properly associated with its transaction. It may have been opened in a transactional resource manager that was subsequently forced to restart. Please close the handle and open a new one. The specified operation could not be performed because the resource manager is not enlisted in the transaction. Log service found an invalid log sector. Log service encountered a remapped log sector. Log service encountered a partial or incomplete log block. Log service encountered an attempt to access data outside the active log range. Log service user log marshalling buffers are exhausted. Log service encountered an attempt read from a marshalling area with an invalid read context. Log service encountered an invalid log restart area. Log service encountered an invalid log block version. Log service encountered an invalid log block. Log service encountered an attempt to read the log with an invalid read mode. Log service encountered a log stream with no restart area. Log service encountered a corrupted metadata file. Log service encountered a metadata file that could not be created by the log file system. Log service encountered an attempt to erroneously allocate or dispose reservation space. Log service cannot delete log file or file system container. Log service has attempted to read or write backwards past the start of the log. Log policy in question was not installed at the time of the request. The installed set of policies on the log is invalid. A policy on the log in question prevented the operation from completing. Log space cannot be reclaimed because the log is pinned by the archive tail. Log record is not a record in the log file. A new or existing archive tail or base of the active log is invalid. Log space is exhausted. Log is multiplexed, no direct writes to the physical log is allowed. The operation failed because the log is a dedicated log. Log archival is in progress. The operation requires a non-ephemeral log, but the log is ephemeral. Technologies. Log service is not in the correct state to perform a requested action. Log space cannot be reclaimed because the log is pinned. The log is pinned due to reservation consuming most of the log space. Free some reserved records to make space available. Monitor descriptor could not be obtained. Not able to present due to denial of desktop access. The kernel driver detected a version mismatch between it and the user mode driver. Not enough video memory available to complete the operation. The allocation is currently busy. A problem couldn't be solved due to some currently existing condition. The problem should be tried again later. A problem couldn't be solved due to some currently existing condition. The problem should be tried again immediately. Specified VIDPN handle is invalid. No mode is pinned on the specified VIDPN source target. Specified mode set is stale. Please reacquire the new mode set. Display adapter in question does not have an associated VIDPN manager. VIDPN manager of the display adapter in question does not have an active VIDPN. Specified stride is invalid. Starting the adapter has been deferred temporarily. The function failed because the display adapter's hardware functionality scan failed to validate the graphics hardware. The HDCP system renewability message passed to this function did not comply with Section 5 of the HDCP 1.1 specification. The function failed because an invalid pointer parameter was passed to it. A pointer parameter is invalid if it is null, it points to an invalid address, it points to a kernel mode address, or it is not correctly aligned. An internal error caused an operation to fail. This volume is locked by BitLocker drive encryption. The volume is not encrypted, no key is available. The control block for the encrypted volume is not valid. The volume cannot be encrypted because it does not have enough free space. The volume cannot be encrypted because the file system is not supported. The file system size is larger than the partition size in the partition table. The file system does not extend to the end of the volume. This operation cannot be performed while a file system is mounted on the volume. BitLocker drive encryption is not included with this version of Windows. Requested action not allowed in the current volume state. Data supplied is malformed. The volume is not bound to the system. That volume is not a data volume. A read operation failed while converting the volume. A write operation failed while converting the volume. The control block for the encrypted volume was updated by another thread. Try again. The encryption algorithm does not support the sector size of that volume. That volume is not the OS volume. The BitLocker startup key or recovery password could not be read from external media. The BitLocker startup key or recovery password file is corrupt or invalid. The BitLocker encryption key could not be obtained from the startup key or recovery password. The Trusted Platform Module (TPM) is disabled. The system boot information changed or the Trusted Platform Module (TPM) locked out access to BitLocker encryption keys until the computer is restarted. The BitLocker encryption key could not be obtained from the Trusted Platform Module (TPM). The BitLocker encryption key could not be obtained from the Trusted Platform Module (TPM) and PIN. The boot configuration data (BCD) settings are not supported or have changed since BitLocker was enabled. Boot debugging is enabled. Run BCD edit to turn it off. The BitLocker encryption key could not be obtained. The metadata disk region pointer is incorrect. The backup copy of the metadata is out of date. No action was taken as a system reboot is required. No action was taken as BitLocker drive encryption is in raw access mode. BitLocker drive encryption cannot enter raw access mode for this volume. The system firmware failed to enable clearing of system memory on reboot. This feature of BitLocker drive encryption is not included with this version of Windows. Technologies. BitLocker drive encryption failed to recover from aborted conversion. This could be due to either all conversion logs being corrupted or the media being write protected. The management information stored on the drive contained an unknown type. If you are using an old version of Windows, try accessing the drive from the latest version. The drive is too small to be protected using BitLocker drive encryption. The BitLocker encryption key could not be obtained from the Trusted Platform Module (TPM) and enhanced PIN. Try using a PIN containing only numerals. Secure boot has been disabled. Either secure boot must be RAE-enabled, or BitLocker must be suspended for Windows to start normally. Device lock has been triggered due to too many incorrect password attempts. The callout does not exist. The filter condition does not exist. The filter does not exist. The layer does not exist. The provider does not exist. The sublayer does not exist. The object does not exist. An object with that GUID or LUID already exists. The object is referenced by other objects so cannot be deleted. The call was made from the wrong session so cannot be completed. The call must be made from within an explicit transaction. The call is not allowed from within an explicit transaction. The explicit transaction has been forcibly cancelled. The session has been cancelled. The call is not allowed from within a read-only transaction. The call timed out while waiting to acquire the transaction lock. Collection of network diagnostic events is disabled. The operation is not supported by the specified layer. The call is allowed for kernel mode callers only. The call tried to associate two objects with incompatible lifetimes. The object is built-in so cannot be deleted. The maximum number of callouts has been reached. A notification could not be delivered because a message queue is at its maximum capacity. The traffic parameters do not match those for the security association context. A required pointer is null. An enumerator is not valid. The flags field contains an invalid value. A network mask is not valid. An FWP_range is not valid. The time interval is not valid. An array that must contain at least one element is 0 length. The displayData.name field cannot be null. The action type is not one of the allowed action types for a filter. The filter weight is not valid. A filter condition contains a match type that is not compatible with the operands. An FWP_value or FWPM_condition_value is of the wrong type. An integer value is outside the allowed range. A reserved field is non-zero. A filter cannot contain multiple conditions operating on a single field. A policy cannot contain the same keying module more than once. An IKE policy cannot contain an extended mode policy. The enumeration template or subscription will never match any objects. The parameter is incorrect. The maximum number of sublayers has been reached. The WFP MAC layers are not ready. The BFE IPsec connection tracking is disabled. The DNS name is invalid. The engine option is still enabled due to other configuration settings. The IKEXT service is not running. This service only runs when there is IPsec policy applied to the machine. The TCP/IP stack is not ready. The injection handle is stale. The classify cannot be pended. The packet should be dropped, no ICMP should be sent. The binding to the network interface is being closed. An invalid version was specified. An invalid characteristics table was used. Failed to find the network interface or network interface is not ready. Failed to open the network interface. Network interface has encountered an internal unrecoverable failure. Technologies. The multicast list on the network interface is full. An attempt was made to add a duplicate multicast address to the list. An attempt was made to remove a multicast address that was never added. Network interface aborted the request. Network interface cannot process the request because it is being reset. Network interface does not support this request. An attempt was made to send an invalid packet on a network interface. Network interface is not ready to complete this operation. The length of the buffer submitted for this operation is not valid. The data used for this operation is not valid. The length of buffer submitted for this operation is too small. Network interface does not support this OID, object identifier. The network interface has been removed. Network interface does not support this media type. An attempt was made to map a file that cannot be found. An error occurred while NDIS tried to map the file. An attempt was made to map a file that is ALRE mapped. An attempt to allocate a hardware resource failed because the resource is used by another component. The I/O operation failed because network media is disconnected or wireless access point is out of range. The network address used in the request is invalid. The offload operation on the network interface has been paused. Network interface was not found. The specified port does not exist on this network interface. The current state of the specified port on this network interface does not support the requested operation. The mini port adapter is in lower power state. This operation requires the mini port adapter to be reinitialized. The wireless local area network interface is busy and cannot perform the requested operation. The request will be completed later by NDIS status indication. The TCP connection is not offloadable because of a local policy setting. This is an error mask to convert TPM hardware errors to WIN errors. Authentication failed. The index to a PCR, DIR or other register is incorrect. One or more parameter is bad. An operation completed successfully but the auditing of that operation failed. The clear disable flag is set and all clear operations now require physical access. Activate the Trusted Platform Module TPM. Enable the Trusted Platform Module TPM. The target command has been disabled. The operation failed. The ordinal was unknown or inconsistent. The ability to install an owner is disabled. The key handle cannot be interpreted. The key handle points to an invalid key. Unacceptable encryption scheme. Migration authorization failed. PCR information could not be interpreted. No room to load key. There is no storage root key, SRK, set. An encrypted blob is invalid or was not created by this TPM. The Trusted Platform Module TPM already has an owner. The TPM has insufficient internal resources to perform the requested action. A random string was too short. The TPM does not have the space to perform the operation. The named PCR value does not match the current PCR value. The param size argument to the command has the incorrect value. There is no existing SHA-1 thread. The calculation is unable to proceed because the existing SHA-1 thread has already encountered an error. The TPM hardware device reported a failure during its internal self-test. Try restarting the computer to resolve the problem. If the problem continues, you might need to replace your TPM hardware or motherboard. The authorization for the second key in a 2-key function failed authorization. The tag value sent to for a command is invalid. An I/O error occurred transmitting information to the tag value sent to for a command is invalid. An I/O error occurred transmitting information to the TPM. The encryption process had a problem. The decryption process did not complete. An invalid handle was used. The TPM does not have an endorsement key, EK, installed. The usage of a key is not allowed. The submitted entity type is not allowed. The command was received in the wrong sequence relative to TPM_init and a subsequent TPM_startup. Technologies. Signed data cannot include additional DIR information. The key properties in TPM_key_parms are not supported by this TPM. The migration properties of this key are incorrect. The signature or encryption scheme for this key is incorrect or not permitted in this situation. The size of the data, or blob parameter is bad or inconsistent with the referenced key. A mode parameter is bad, such as caparea or subcaparea for TPM_get capability, physical presence parameter for TPM_physical presence, or migration type for TPM_CRETA migration blob. Either the physical presence or physical presence alloc bits have the wrong value. The TPM cannot perform this version of the capability. The TPM does not allow for wrapped transport sessions. TPM audit construction failed and the underlying command was returning success. Attempt to reset a PCR register that does not have the resettable attribute. Attempt to reset a PCR register that requires locality and locality modifier not part of command transport. Make identity blob not properly typed. When saving context, identified resource type does not match actual resource. The TPM is attempting to execute a command only available when in FIPS mode. The command is attempting to use an invalid family ID. The permission to manipulate the NV storage is not available. The operation requires a signed command. Wrong operation to load an NV key. NV_load key blob requires both owner and blob authorization. The NV area is locked and not readable. The locality is incorrect for the attempted operation. The NV area is read only and can't be written to. There is no protection on the write to the NV area. The family count value does not match. The NV area has already been written to. The NV area attributes conflict. The structure tag and version are invalid or inconsistent. The key is under control of the TPM owner and can only be evicted by the TPM owner. The counter handle is incorrect. The write is not a complete write of the area. The gap between saved context counts is too large. The maximum number of NV writes without an owner has been exceeded. No operator auth data value is set. The resource pointed to by context is not loaded. The delegate administration is locked. Attempt to manage a family other than the delegated family. Delegation table management not enabled. Attempt to context save a owner evict controlled key. The DAA command has no resources available to execute the command. The consistency check on DAA parameter input data 0 has failed. The consistency check on DAA parameter input data 1 has failed. The consistency check on DAA_issuer settings has failed. The consistency check on DAA_TPM specific has failed. The atomic process indicated by the submitted DAA command is not the expected process. The issuer's validity check has detected an inconsistency. The consistency check on W has failed. The handle is incorrect. Delegation is not correct. The context blob is invalid. Too many contexts held by the TPM. Migration authority signature validation failure. Migration destination not authenticated. Migration source incorrect. Incorrect migration authority. Attempt to revoke the EK and the EK is not revocable. Bad signature of CMK ticket. There is no room in the context list for additional contexts. The command was blocked. The specified handle was not found. The TPM returned a duplicate handle and the command needs to be resubmitted. The TPM is too busy to respond to the command immediately, but the command could be resubmitted at a later time. Self-testful has not been run. The TPM is currently executing a full self-test. The TPM is defending against dictionary attacks and is in a timeout period. The command was cancelled. A new TPM context could not be created because there are too many open contexts. TPM driver is not compatible with the version of TPM found on the system. Technologies. The caller does not have the appropriate rights to perform the requested operation. The caller does not have the appropriate rights to perform the requested operation. This is an error mask to convert platform crypto provider errors to win errors. The platform crypto device is currently not ready. It needs to be fully provisioned to be operational. The handle provided to the platform crypto provider is invalid. A parameter provided to the platform crypto provider is invalid. A provided flag to the platform crypto provider is not supported. The requested operation is not supported by this platform crypto provider. The buffer is too small to contain all data. No information has been written to the buffer. An unexpected internal error has occurred in the platform crypto provider. The referenced policy was not found. The referenced profile was not found. The validation was not successful. The hypervisor could not perform the operation because a parameter has an invalid alignment. The hypervisor could not perform the operation because an invalid parameter was specified. Access to the specified object was denied. The operation is not allowed in the current state. The hypervisor does not recognize the specified partition property. There is not enough memory in the hypervisor pool to complete the operation. The maximum partition depth has been exceeded for the partition hierarchy. A partition with the specified partition ID does not exist. The hypervisor could not perform the operation because the specified VP index is invalid. The hypervisor could not perform the operation because the specified port identifier is invalid. The hypervisor could not perform the operation because the specified connection identifier is invalid. Not enough buffers were supplied to send a message. The previous virtual interrupt has not been acknowledged. The previous virtual interrupt has already been acknowledged. The hypervisor could not complete the operation because a required feature of the synthetic interrupt controller, SYNC, was disabled. The hypervisor could not perform the operation because the object or value was either already in use or being used for a purpose that would not permit completing the operation. An attempt to retrieve debugging data failed because none was available. The physical connection being used for debugging has not recorded any receive activity since the last operation. There are not enough resources to complete the operation. A hypervisor feature is not available to the user. The hypervisor could not perform the operation because the specified LP index is invalid. No hypervisor is present on this system. The handler for the virtualization infrastructure driver is already registered. Restarting the virtual machine may fix the problem. If the problem persists, try restarting the physical computer. The number of registered handlers for the virtualization infrastructure driver exceeded the maximum. Restarting the virtual machine may fix the problem. If the problem persists, try restarting the physical computer. The message queue for the virtualization infrastructure driver is full and cannot accept new messages. Restarting the virtual machine may fix the problem. If the problem persists, try restarting the physical computer. No handler exists to handle the message for the virtualization infrastructure driver. Restarting the virtual machine may fix the problem. If the problem persists, try restarting the physical computer. The name of the partition or message queue for the virtualization infrastructure driver is invalid. Restarting the virtual machine may fix the problem. If the problem persists, try restarting the physical computer. The memory block for the virtualization infrastructure driver is still being used and cannot be destroyed. The request exceeded the memory block page limit for the virtualization infrastructure driver. Restarting the virtual machine may fix the problem. If the problem persists, try restarting the physical computer. The handle is not a valid parent partition mapping handle for the virtualization infrastructure driver. Notifications cannot be created on the memory block because it is use. The message queue for the virtualization infrastructure driver has been closed. Restarting the virtual machine may fix the problem. If the problem persists, try restarting the physical computer. Technologies. Cannot stop the virtual processor immediately because of a pending intercept. The memory mapped I/O for this page range no longer exists. Restarting the virtual machine may fix the problem. If the problem persists, try restarting the physical computer. Cannot restore this virtual machine because the saved state data cannot be read. Delete the saved state data and then try to start the virtual machine. The SPI in the packet does not match a valid IPsec packet was received on an IPsec that does not match the packet characteristics. IPsec header and/or trailer in the packet is invalid. IPsec dropped a clear text packet. IPsec dropped an incoming ESP packet in authenticated firewall mode. This drop is benign. IPsec dropped a packet due to DOS throttling. IPsec DOS protection matched an explicit block rule. IPsec DOS protection failed to create state because the maximum number of entries allowed by policy has been reached. The configuration database is full. The same disk was specified more than once in the migration list. The disk is already dynamic. The specified disk ID is invalid. There are no disks with the specified disk ID. The specified disk is an invalid disk. Operation cannot complete on an invalid disk. The specified disks cannot be removed since it is the last remaining voter. The specified disk is missing. The operation cannot complete on a missing disk. The specified disk is not empty. The specified member is already in sync with the other active members. It does not need to be regenerated. The specified member is missing. It cannot be regenerated. All disks belonging to the pack failed. The specified notification user does not exist. Failed to unregister user for notifications. The specified source and target packs are identical. The specified pack ID is invalid. There are no packs with the specified pack ID. The specified pack is the invalid pack. The operation cannot complete with the invalid pack. The specified pack name is invalid. The specified pack is offline. The specified pack already has a quorum of healthy disks. The specified plex is already in sync with the other active plexes. It does not need to be regenerated. The specified plex is the last active plex in the volume. The plex cannot be removed or else the volume will go offline. The specified plex is missing. The specified plex is currently regenerating. The specified plex type is invalid. The operation is only supported on RAID 5 plexes. The operation is only supported on simple plexes. The specified volume ID is invalid. There are no volumes with the specified volume ID. The specified volume is offline. The specified volume already has a retain partition. The boot disk experienced failures. The specified pack is not the primary pack. The operation is not supported on mirrored volumes. Entries enumerated have exceeded the allowed threshold. The virtual hard disk is corrupted. The virtual hard disk drive footer is missing. The virtual hard disk is corrupted. The virtual hard disk drive footer in the virtual hard disk is corrupted. The system does not recognize the file format of this virtual hard disk. The system does not support this version of the virtual hard disk. The block size is invalid. The virtual hard disk is corrupted. The block bitmap does not match with the block data present in the virtual hard disk. The chain of virtual hard disks is broken. The system cannot locate the parent virtual hard disk for the differencing disk. The size of the virtual hard disk is not valid. The file size of this virtual hard disk is not valid. The requested operation could not be completed due to a virtual disk system limitation. On NTFS, virtual hard disk files must be uncompressed and unencrypted. On refs, virtual hard disk files must not have the integrity bit set. The requested operation cannot be performed on a virtual disk of this type. The requested operation cannot be performed on the virtual disk in its current state. There is not enough space in the virtual disk file for the provided metadata item. The virtualization storage subsystem has generated an error. The derived indexed store is not present, or currently loaded, on this system. Technologies. The attribute was not found in the store for a given object. Partial data was successfully returned. Some attributes need to be calculated from elsewhere. The resume key filter could not find the resume key supplied for the operation. The resume key filter found an existing resume key that matches the one supplied for the handle. The resume key filter data blob attached to the handle is full. No more space is available. The resume key filter handle store is full. No more resume handles can be accepted. The resume key filter failed the operation because the file is temporarily blocked pending the resume of existing handles on the file. The resume key filter found an existing resume key that matches the one supplied on a handle that's active, open. The operation requires an inactive, closed handle. The operation must be restarted by RDBSS. The operation must continue processing. The operation must be posted to a thread to be retried at passive IRQL. The attribute handle given was not valid on this server. The attribute PDU was invalid. Offset specified was past the end of the attribute. The attribute request that was requested has encountered an error that was unlikely, and therefore could not be completed as requested. An error that lies in the reserved range has been received. Secure boot is not enabled on this machine. Secure boot requires that certain files and drivers are not replaced by other files or drivers. There were not enough physical disks to complete the requested operation. Technologies.